vinyl community, Beach Boys fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about the brand new CD I'm so excited to talk about, the Beach Boys 1967 Sunshine Tomorrow, released on Capitol Records and Brother Records, and as far as I know, so far only available on CD. So this is this oh man, I finally got the chance to play this, and I am so happy with it. And happy is a word that's so easy to throw around, but I'm satisfied, amazed, blown away, surprised. I can go on and on with the descriptors about this thing. The 1967 era of the Beach Boys are one of my favorite eras of that group because you come off Smile, and where do you go from there? Smile never happens. It becomes a myth. It becomes this dream. It becomes like um, a, a failure in the eyes of the creator, and you're kind of like left to figure out where to go. What's the next step? What do you do? Well, you completely start over again, and that's what they did. You know, I think the Smile sessions ended sometime in May, and then in June, they jumped right back in the studio again, completely bare bones approach, using the Beach Boys as the musicians instead of the studio musicians, and going for something completely different. And after having years of, really intricately crafted studio musicianship, um, expansive songs that were bordering on Baroque pop and nothing compared to what they had done even 3 or 4 years earlier. You know, to go from this peak of pet sounds and good vibrations and the 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 bubbling of the pot that was gonna be Smile. Fans were like, wow, these guys are like on top of the world. And all of a sudden, nothing happened. They dropped out of Monterey. They changed up what they wanted to do with their set list. Smile never came out. Nothing was happening, it seemed like. And then you get this, and realizing that they only started work on the next album a handful of weeks after Smile ended. You know? And it's funny, it mentions it in the liner notes, but you have this image, I have this image for sure. You have this image of Smile not coming out, and then all of a sudden you get 2 albums at the end of the year. And you have this thought of like, well, nothing happened in between. You just imagine like Brian being completely burnt out and like hanging out in his room doing nothing, and the other guys going out on tour. Um, but no, they were busy the entire year. And this is a wonderful document of that time. I cannot praise this release enough, and I really hope to do more like this because this is such an essential part of the Beach Boys story. And it's amazing that only now is it coming out, 50 years in the future here. But anyways, so this CD features the very first stereo mix of the Wild Honey album, which was fantastic to hear. There's versions on YouTube that people have made, and people have done their own versions over the years, but hearing like a professional mix of it was very cool. So what I'm gonna do with this video is kind of run through the album itself as a review, and then try to cram in as much as I can with the bonus stuff because there is a ton on here. It's like 3 hours worth of music. Like I listened to it all in one go because I was so stoked to hear it. It's been something I've been looking forward to for a while. And when they first announced it, it was like a dream. Like, wow, they're gonna release stuff from just that 1 year of some of my favorite stuff they ever did. Yeah, amazing. So let's start with the album itself, with the Wild Honey record. Hearing it in stereo was a trip because there was so much stuff I've never heard in the background, and I've heard this album a million times, and hearing like background vocals that were buried in the mix with the mono mix, or guitar fills, tambourines, drums, all of it. So I've got the original mono album on vinyl, and then I also have I think it's a 2003 issue on vinyl, that sounds very good. It's probably my favorite copy of the album that I own. But this stereo mix might actually be my new favorite version of this album. It's fantastic. Let's jump into it. The Wild Honey track. So I'm not really going to give a whole lot of history I mean, it's gonna pop up here and there, but I've already done a video on Wild Honey, so if you want to go check that one out, it's probably over here somewhere, up there maybe, or maybe it's down there. You'll find it. This this song was cool because what took me to a different place with this song was the drums. You can hear the snare so cleanly, and the tambourine. The background vocals were amazingly pronounced and super clear. I sometimes feel like with some of the songs on this album, the production was a little bit muddy on a couple of songs. But this song in particular was a fantastically fresh approach to this album. Aren't You Glad? That completely blew me away. There were all these little guitar fills that I've never heard before. The chorus was super clean. There were tons of horns. Like, wow, you can really hear them. And Mike's vocals are just so sweet and tender. You know, it's one of those songs where it's like, man, I wish he sung more like that, because wow. Yeah, and you get to really hear how clean it is. It's crazy. I Was Made to Love Her has this excellent separation between all the instruments, so you can really hear each individual component of the song in striking detail. Country Air, this was one of those songs I feel like was pretty muddied up in the mix, and this feels like it has a brand new life, because the original one, as much as I love that song, it kind of sounds like it was recorded in a cave. Like, it's got this like weird vibe to it. This one sounds like it's out in the country air. It's like it can breathe. It's fresh. Loved it. It was great. A thing or two also blew my mind because there's background vocals on the choruses. I've never heard that. Completely new to me. It was one of those things where I was like, oh, whoa, did you hear that? What the hell was that? It's great. Darlin', the horns in the second verse, I was like, hell yeah! Like, you can really hear them, and it changes the whole song. I love Just Wants to See You. Not much of a change on that one. It's basically just, you know, the acoustic guitar, but the bass is really prominent, which is nice to hear it thumping along, and the echo on the last line of the vocal was really cool. Here Comes the Night. It was cool, like, hear "well my" as the first couple of words. You know, you kind of missed that on the mono mix. That was way louder, and the drums itself were just loud and tight. And the background vocals of "Here Comes the Night," oh, here comes the night, oh, like all of that was so, like, just locked in with each other and super tight and super like confident and badass. And then it's like you can tell they were having a good time, really giving it all they had. On the mono mix, you do hear that too. But on the stereo mix, there's something about the punchiness that they deliver with that really sets it apart from that mono mix. Let the Wind Blow, the hi-hats on that song were fantastic. The vocals are super, super clear. The snare drum. There's actually a snare drum on that thing. It was like hearing a brand new song. It was like hearing it for the first time. How She Boogalooed It. Not a whole lot different on that one. Noticing a lot more guitar fills. And Mama Says is mono. Apparently the stereo, the original tape, I guess, was lost, so they couldn't make a stereo mix out of it. So that's the whole album, and after that we have a ton of sessions, and these were cool. There's a song called Lonely Days, which is like not a duet, but Bruce and Carl take turns doing the verses, and that's pretty unusual. It's a kind of unusual pairing, and I absolutely loved that song. It would have fit great on the album, and it's one of those things where sometimes you get bonus tracks and you're like, nah, yeah, I could live without that. This was a great song, and it has that same feeling, that same like do-it-yourself vibe from the Wild Honey era. Really enjoyed that. Cool Cool Water. I like this version a lot. It's very chill. It almost reminded me of like a gum commercial or a toothpaste commercial. Like, it was so fresh. Like minty fresh song. Loved it. Time to Get Alone was a really cool early version of it. Had a great harpsichord going on. Can't Wait Too Long is one of my absolute favorite Beach Boys songs probably ever. And this is like an awesome jam version of it, and there's studio banter on it, which was great to hear. Love Just Wants to See You is kind of a different alternate edit, has a longer jam kind of an ending, which was cool. I Was Made to Love Her has there's a vocal take that they do where it sounds almost like the actual song that Stevie Wonder does, his version. and then they do another like instrumental take of it. Hide and Go Seek is just a little quick instrumental thing. Not too much to say about that. Honey Get Home is also I think that was also instrumental, but again, very cool music, guys. I love that era, like the organs and the guitars. It was so sparse, but had so much heart and so much soul. Can't go wrong with that thing. The Wild Honey highlights were great. You just get a lot of session highlights of them horsing around, getting the vocals right, figuring out what sounds good. So that was cool. Let the Wind Blow. So we got A Thing or Two, Darlin', Let the Wind Blow. These were all session highlights of them running through demos. And it's cool to hear the song's construction, hearing it from just a piano and then building up as the session highlights go on. So I really, really enjoyed that. After that, you get a couple of live tracks. You get Wild Honey, Country Air, Darlin', How She Boogalooed It. Those were all from 1967, and it's funny because, you know, at this time they were really trying to go for a loose, nowadays you'd call it indie vibe on stage, whereas it wasn't like the big grand production they had been doing with lots of energy. They were kind of going for like this underground, do-it-yourself feeling, which, you know, they were trying to bring from their albums to the stage show. The only problem was these songs were so new. I don't think the album was even out yet. And so they're getting the words wrong, which is kind of fun to listen to, like especially the How She Boogalooed It and maybe even Wild Honey or Darlin'. They get the words messed up. And then Mama Says is a session highlights, which is great to hear them, you know, come up with different versions of that Eat a Lot, Sleep a Lot, Brush 'em Like Crazy bit. So that was cool. Man, this is going to be a long video, so I'm going to plow through disc 2 as much as I can. So the first 10 songs on CD 2 are all Smiley Smile sessions. Really cool stuff. You know, you get to hear like really stripped back versions of some of these songs. Most notably Fall Breaks and Back to Winter. I really liked hearing that without kind of the weird stuff going on. Just hearing it for what it was, which is not a whole lot going on. So that was cool. With Me Tonight has a really nice bass intro that I really enjoyed that version of. That bass line was actually more interesting than I thought it was. Let's see, it's got really nice, harder vocal style. Packs more of a punch, whereas the album version's kind of a chill song. This is a little more upbeat. I almost feel like a Help Me Rhonda vibe on that a little bit. The version of Wonderful on here is basically just this beautiful solo organ or piano, and it's amazing. It's just so pretty and amazing that some of this music just exists and that they created it. It's one of those moments where you're like, wow, the Beach Boys are such a great freaking band, you know? Whistle In has a really cool vocal arrangement demo. There's a couple of those. And Redwood is this little, like, tiny little twinkling acoustic guitar riff that they found in a box labeled Redwood. So no one really knows what it is. Oh man, take a breath. Then you get to the live album, the Late in Hawaii album, and a lot of this stuff has been released over the years. A couple of tracks were new to me, which is great. Like A Little Help from My Friends is new to me, but a lot of this stuff has been bootlegged countless times over the years. In a nutshell, what they did is they recorded a handful of shows in Hawaii. Didn't feel like the tapes were good enough. Brian was actually there. He played organ. Alan Carl switched off on bass. They got back. They went to touch up the tracks. Realized, I'm not feeling those. They went to the studio, basically jammed out their set list for a half hour, and had this guy Fred Vale do an intro, and they were going to throw audience banter on top of it and make an album. And it got as far as being mastered and mixed. And at the last minute, they were like, nah, maybe not. Let's just not do it. Let's focus on something else. And they started doing Wild Honey instead. Which, in hindsight, was probably a better idea. You know, they had already put out, not them, but Capitol already done 2 greatest hits albums by this point. Putting out a live album, I'm not sure how that would have helped them. It would have been interesting for sure, because some of the songs they did, like The Letter, With a Little Help from My Friends, Game of Love. So there's a couple of tracks on here that are from the time that are interesting to hear their versions of, especially Game of Love. Their version of that was really cool. Their Hearts Were Full of Spring. This version has been out for a long time. That's easily my favorite version of that song they ever did. But highlights from that live album, I would say A Little Help from My Friends with Bruce singing it was very cool. That bass line is like spot on. I don't know how they did that, but it's like exactly whoever's playing bass on that thing did their homework because it's like the exact same bass line. The version of Surfer Girl on here was fantastic, and I really liked their God Only Knows was really good. You're So Good to Me was fun. It's cool to hear the gang together with Brian there singing those older songs, but in 1967. That's kind of a trip. And then you get some other live stuff from Hawaii with them doing surfing. And the way they introduced it was funny. Like, hey, here's our first song we ever wrote. Like, we've done all these other things since. And it seems weird to hear them go back and do surfing after they've done, like, Good Vibrations. Here they are singing surfing. Like, so strange. So weird. And then they followed that up with Getting Hungry, which was their new single at the time, and Hawaii. Like, what a weird set list. It's just such a weird set list. And then it ends with a couple of live songs from the Thanksgiving tour they did, 1967, California Girls, Graduation Day, I Get Around, and then a couple of different versions of Surfer Girl and Surf's Up. And that's the entire thing. I mean, it's like, I think it's like 3 hours worth of music. It is so cram-packed with songs. You see all that? Truly cool. I got the original liner notes to the Wild Honey album in there. But yeah, it's 2 CDs. I cannot recommend this enough. If you're a Beach Boys fan, if you're a fan of Wild Honey and Smiley Smile and Smile, you will love this. You will eat this thing up. It's going to be on rotation for me for the next couple of months. I know it for sure. It's one of those like magic things where you feel like something was made for you. You know, it's one of those moments. So yeah, I mean, this album has so many special songs on it from such a special time. You know, hearing the Beach Boys become a band again and really just get together, hanging out in Brian's house, recording together, and you know, they can be there all day, not worry about studio time. They get inspired by Honey that's in the cabinet and, you know, write a great song. You know, Carl really showcases his rock and roll voice on this album for the first time. And the playing on it is just fantastic. They were a good little group. They really were. You know, it was just the core Beach Boys. They could put an album together real well. And this shows. It's really cool to hear the development of the songs growing into what they became. To show that they put a lot of work into this thing. Even if it was only a handful of takes, they had their heart and soul into it because they wanted to make something fun and easy and not challenging, like Pet Sounds and Smile had been. So, long video over. 10 out of 10. Hands down, all day. Yeah, highly recommend this thing. Pick it up. That's all I gotta say about it. This has been a very long review, but Beach Boys, 1967, Sunshine Tomorrow. Go get it, enjoy it, love it, make it a part of your CD collection forever, and you will not be disappointed. There's not one bad track on this thing. Yeah. Nerding out about the Beach Boys. My name is Giggens. This has been the Beach Boys, 1967, Sunshine Tomorrow. Yeah, that's it. 10 out of 10. Thanks.